Thanks everybody for joining us. This is part 5 of our work from home series, How to Stay Sane When Working from Home. Today we're going to talk with Ben Molina, and we're going to talk about cybersecurity with Katie. And we're excited. Ben's got some updates for us from the city, and then Katie and I are going to talk a little bit about the dark web and cybersecurity. We're excited. Thanks, Ben and Katie, for joining us.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Absolutely, likewise.
Great. So as you guys know, Ben is a city councilman here in Corpus Christi, and he's been providing updates for us every week on how things are going and how the Corpus's response to the quarantine and COVID. And so I'd love to hear, Ben, tell me what's going on, what's going on in the city, and what do business leaders need to know?
Yeah. Well, good morning. Thank you again, Doug, and good morning to all of those who are watching. So a couple of things. I'm happy to report that for the past several days, we've had no new cases here in Corpus Christi. And I think that's due to a lot of the people who are abiding by the stay-at-home order and practicing social distancing. So I hope that trend continues. We're going to have our updates released every 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday, on the city's social media pages, both on Facebook and even YouTube. The city has a YouTube channel, so you can go there and tune in and get the updates. And these updates, this information, some of it we get beforehand, but a lot of it we, as council members, find out at 5 o'clock also, just like everybody else. So sometimes there's some new information that's included that even we're unaware of at the time. So that's a good resource. I spoke a couple of weeks back about the city's partnership with a LIFT fund, where we approved $2 million that is geared towards small business. So those small businesses, in order to qualify, they have to have a max gross revenue of $1.5 million. And the priority is going to be focused on those businesses that are most affected by the governor's stay-at-home order, which is going to be those businesses that are deemed non-essential. So this last Tuesday during our council meeting, we took a look at the program, and there's still money available, but however, there are a lot of applications coming in. So what we did is we approved an additional $1 million for the program. And so that's going to be made available also. And for more information on that, you can go to liftfund.com. I know that they do a 4-month deferral, and it's 0 interest. So it's just another resource for businesses to help get us through this time. And then going back to the governor's orders, the city of Corpus Christi has a stay-at-home order, which expires on the 30th. So we have until the 30th to decide if we're going to extend the order or if we're going to amend the order to open up small businesses. But for that to happen, the governor has to open up the state for operating business. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on. We don't have another council meeting until May 12th. So until then, if we do have to change the order, there's some things that the mayor can do as an emergency order that he can sign off on. But unless he does that, then we'll have to call a special council meeting between now and then if we're going to make any changes to that order. So that's my update for right now.
Great, thanks so much. Hey, I had a couple questions. So I'm glad to hear that people are following the stay-at-home order and that we're seeing it make a change. That's fantastic. Without telling us names, can you give us some of the ideas? What kinds of businesses are applying for the LIFT fund, and who are you getting accepted? Like, who's that helping the most?
So some of the businesses, the industries are there's a construction industry, there's a catering business. Those are the couple that I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But those businesses, there's also even a acupuncture clinic that is included in that first couple that are being approved.
Right.
But yeah, if your business is deemed as essential, that doesn't mean you're disqualified from this program. It's just that the priority is given to those that are deemed non-essential. So even if your business has been deemed essential and you need this program, I would still encourage those that need it to apply for it.
Well, it's great that there's something to try to help fill in the gap, right? There's some people that are being helped by other government programs or other loan packages and things. That's great that there's something else there to help fill in the gap, for those businesses that are small that need help. That's great. And then just one other question. So on April 30th, so right now, are we going to hear something before April 30th about what it looks like when the stay-at-home is released? Or are we going to find out kind of around that time what that looks like on May 1st?
No, we'll know beforehand. Like I said, we're going to keep an eye on what the governor's doing. But beforehand, a couple of days before the 30th, we'll have a decision made on which direction we're going to go.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well, thanks, Ben. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for checking in with us and giving us an update. That's great.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
We want to go to our next section here on our webinar. We've got Katie Wallace. She's with a software as a service company called Kaseya, and they have some cybersecurity solutions that we like to share with our clients. One of the reasons we wanted to talk to Katie this week is we're seeing an increase in the bad guys during this time. People are vulnerable and maybe not as vigilant around taking care of their technology because, we're kind of have a lot of other priorities and a lot of other things that we're worried about. And so we wanted to bring Katie on to talk a little bit about some cybercrime and about some of the things that their company does. This is actually a partner of Straight Edge, where we train and provide these services to our clients. And so we're excited to have Katie. Katie, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me be a part of this presentation today.
So to kick things off, I'm gonna queue up your first slide here, but why don't you tell us, why do the criminals care about our data? A lot of times that's what I hear when we meet with people is why do they even care about the kind of data that my business has?
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, cybercrime, it's run like a business. All of the data that is being sold on the dark web has a price tag on it. And like you mentioned, Doug, unfortunately, with all that's going on, coronavirus-themed phishing attacks and hacking campaigns are on the rise. These opportunist crooks are exploiting the coronavirus as part of their attempts to gain access to our information. And then, once a cyber criminal gains access to our information, they are selling it on the dark web for a profit. Modern cyber attacks, such as phishing attacks, which we'll get into a little bit later on, can be highly profitable for cyber criminals. A lot of the times, these cyber attacks, such as phishing, they don't cost a lot of money for the cyber criminals to administer, and a single successful phishing attack can yield thousands or even millions of dollars in revenue for a cyber criminal. Having a proven, predictable business model has enabled cyber criminals to scale and even attract investors to look into making some of the profit that they're yielding from your information that's being sold.
Yeah, we like to think that cybercrime changed from sort of the smash and grab convenience store robbery to like organized crime. Like they have a plan. This is a business model that they're trying to do. So maybe talk to us a little bit about where are they getting our data? Where's this data? Where do they get it from, and where is it traded, and how are they sort of trading the information amongst each other? What makes it valuable?
Absolutely. So to kind of paint the picture, I want to take a look at this iceberg for a minute. What you and I know is the internet is just the surface web or the tip of the iceberg. This is the internet that we all know and love to surf, the internet that we use to run our businesses, connect with families, let's say over Facebook, or even connect with our customers. This surface web only consists of about 4% of the information that's on the internet. As we look a little bit further down, we see the rest of the internet that lives underneath the iceberg. Before we jump into, what the dark web is, I want to talk a little bit about the deep web. The deep web we can't access with a simple Google search, but the deep web has some very common uses. Your email server lives here, online banking sites, your doctor's office will even keep your patient records here. But that's where there's a flip side to it. The flip side to the deep web is the dark web, which is a lot murkier and sometimes darker, which is also why it's known as the dark web. And that's represented by the bottom portion of this iceberg. In the dark web, users do really intentionally bury data. The dark web is only accessible if you use a special browser and connection to the internet. But the dark web isn't all illicit deals and seedy undertakings that the cyber criminals use it for. It's actually used for an array of purposes. The dark web was originally developed by the U.S. Department of Defense. Journalists actually often use the dark web to help protect the anonymity of their sources, and the government may also use the dark web in whistleblower situations. But unfortunately, due to the anonymity of the dark web, cybercrime criminals find the deep web as a safe haven for them. This is where your information is being bought and sold, such as personal information after a data breach happens or a hacking incident. This is where those cyber criminals are starting to make a money off your good name and any numbers or information that's associated with you.
Right. So I think your next slide here has to do a little bit with what's being traded on the web or on the dark web. So maybe talk a little bit about what you guys see being traded.
Absolutely. And this is actually a screenshot of what a website looks like on the dark web. I asked our team of analysts who sit on the dark web to share this screenshot with me. This is an example of a website that is selling credit card information. It's actually a very popular website on the dark web. And if you have access to the dark web, you can hop on this website and actually buy information from anywhere between $5 to $110. So realistically, it's kind of fairly affordable to buy information that's out there. This is actually even a full package website where these fraudsters are selling your stolen name, social security number, birth date, account numbers, and really anything that you would need to effectively use a credit card that you're buying from this site. This site, unfortunately, will even discreetly mail you the card that you bought, so your neighbors would even have no idea that you're buying information from the dark web. Just to circle back to my first slide and kind of tie the two together, this website, you can even leave reviews for it like you would leave a Google review for a regular business.
So there's a real marketplace, real business, real business that's trying to trade, our credit card information. And if I understand this right, you're saying that they're going to send us, if you were the bad guy, they're going to send you like an actual something in the mail that represents the credit card information that they've stolen.
Absolutely. So you can then not only just use that card on the internet, you can use it in person as well.
Wow. So I'm gonna put you on the spot just because it's something that came to my mind. How quick do they use the data? Do we find that they sit on the information after it's been stolen, or do they find that they kind of sit on it for a while?
It really depends. So in some instances, a cyber criminal will sit on a list of information that they've gotten through a data breach. A cyber criminal will sit on a list of information if they're trying to receive some sort of ransomware payment for that data. Maybe they want to get Bitcoin from that company that they've stolen the data from. However, a cyber criminal, if they do obtain a lot of credit card details when they breach an organization, that's when you see them move a little bit quicker, because they know credit card companies have fraudulent departments that are looking for data breaches or whatnot. So if a data breach happens and a cyber criminal receives a lot of debit or credit card information, you typically see them move a little bit faster. So somebody that buys the card information can get to the money that they want to.
Okay, interesting.
Absolutely. And, as we're going through the cybercrime, what the dark web is, I want to talk about how your data does wind up on the dark web. We're focusing on 4 main styles of attacks on today's webinar. But first and foremost, phishing attacks are a persistent threat to any business. A staggering 90% of breaches involve phishing. Phishing is an attempt to acquire personal information such as usernames, passwords, or even that financial information via impersonation or spoofing through email. There's actually several phishing attempts going around surrounding the coronavirus. And there's one, it's a cyber criminal. They're claiming to be a legit organization with information surrounding the coronavirus. This email message might ask you to open an attachment to see the latest statistics. But if you click on the attachment or the embedded link within that email, you're likely to download malicious software onto whatever device that you've opened the email from. The malicious software, or malware for short, could allow cyber criminals then to take control of your computer, log your keystrokes, or even access personal information such as financial data that you may have saved on that device that could indefinitely lead to identity theft. The next style of attack that I want to talk about are malvertisements. This may not be a term that you've heard of before, but malvertisements, they look like regular advertisements that you would see on the internet on a site that you're browsing, but they contain a code that attacks the visitor's system directly or redirects that visitor to a browser or a malicious website. Malvertisement campaigns are attractive to cybercriminals because they can easily be spread across a large number of legitimate websites, thinking it's okay for a user to click on those ads. I mean, think about it. Anytime you Google a new service or a new website, the next website you go on, you have sponsored ads for that, whatever you have just Googled. So that's how easily that these advertisements or malvertisements can be spread across those legitimate sites. Going back to what you said, Doug, watering hole styles of attacks, these are targeted, and that's, where we're seeing cybercrime really move to. These targeted attacks consist of injecting some sort of malicious code or virus into public web pages that a target may visit the most. This is a very common style of attack for folks within the financial or legal sector because cybercriminals know that they hold the keys to an abundance of sensitive data. The last style of attack I want to mention are web attacks or data breaches. It may seem, if you watch your local or even national news, you may hear of data breaches popping up in the news more frequently these days. Just to mention a few, Capital One, Equifax, Facebook, and Instagram are just a few examples of companies who went through data breaches within the last year alone. A data breach is an incident that exposes confidential or protected information. A data breach might involve the loss or theft of your social security number, bank account information, credit card numbers, even your passwords and email addresses.
I gotta say, in our experience, like the clients and the sort of prospective clients that we talk to, far and away phishing is the one that we see happen so much. It's very effective. People get tricked every day and fall for a phishing attempt, and the attempts are getting better and better and better, is what we're seeing out there too. Some very smart people fall for some of the simpler phishing attacks that come through. And we also notice that they're using LinkedIn to make to get that background information. We tell a story around Lucy, who's on staff at our team. She'd barely worked for us for about a month before she received a targeted phishing attack to her email that looked like it came from me. And there's no way that the cyber criminals would have known that she was working for us except for her LinkedIn profile to know that she had a position at our company and that I was the president of the company. It was very targeted and just pretty incredible to me that the same way that maybe we go look on LinkedIn to go make connections and meet people and learn about people's businesses, those cyber criminals are able to do the same thing, and it helps boost the credibility and helps boost the effectiveness of their phishing campaigns. It's pretty incredible when you think about, like we've been saying, it's a business. And so they're using some of the same tools that we use for business also to kind of do the things that they shouldn't. But, that's absolutely see that happen every day. So tell us what happens next after they've compromised our account or got to some of our data. What do they do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if folks remember hearing about the WannaCry virus that went around a few years ago, but it was targeting computers running on the Microsoft Windows operating system. Then, once a computer was hit with the WannaCry virus, it encrypted all the data, and that cyber criminal was demanding ransomware payments through Bitcoin or however, you wanted to get your data back, you had to make that payment for it. Unfortunately, many attacks don't have to be as notorious as a WannaCry virus to take an entire company down. Once a cyber criminal has access to, let's say, even just an email of yours and they found a password, they can access any account that you've used that email and password on to log into. Something that I was personally guilty of before starting at a cybersecurity company is I thought I was making, it easier on myself by reusing passwords amongst multiple websites, because at the end of the day, we have so many sites that we're asked to log into. But, I've slowly figured out everywhere that you reuse a password on, if that website or that application experiences a data breach and your email and password winds up in the hand of a cyber criminal, they now have access to all the accounts that you've used that login information on, and then whatever lives behind those accounts. So whether it's financial information, credit card details, or even if it's your Office 365 password, they now have access to all of those records. And, unfortunately, many cyber attacks don't have a happy ending. Ransomware and data breaches are a huge security problem for any size organization. According to a quarterly report, around 64% of malicious emails sent, or those phishing emails, used ransomware to obtain data outside of just phishing for information. So your information winds up on the dark web. That cyber criminal now has access to the information behind those accounts. But now they've also installed viruses onto your computer, and they can encrypt your data, locking you out of it. And if you don't have your information backed up, there's likely a chance that you'll never get back that information. And like we mentioned before, all this data that a cyber criminal is taking from you has a price tag on the dark web, and that's how they're making money off your good name and your company's data.
Yeah, I don't think this is in your presentation, but we've been reading reports to like the next level of sort of the ransomware is, it used to be that we're holding your data ransom and we're not going to give it back to you unless you pay the ransom. Now we're seeing we're going to hold your data ransom, and if you don't pay us now, we're going to go ahead and broadcast that information out to the public if you don't pay the ransom. So even if you had a good backup strategy in place, even if you had disaster recovery and you maybe could get all of the data back, they still are going to blast your information out into the dark web on the internet, basically confirm the fact that you've had a breach to the public. And that's like another level of sort of what the criminals are doing now when people, get their data compromised. And it's amazing to me, like the how much it has, what's the word I'm searching for? Exponentially gotten worse, escalated what they're doing whenever they steal your data. So maybe tell us, who do you see as the people that are most targeted? Who's the most vulnerable?
Absolutely. Realistically, these cyber attacks, they used to really only, or cyber criminals, they used to really only target large organizations. But unfortunately, we've really seen the cybersecurity landscape change over the last 5 years. And currently, any business that has a customer base is being targeted. And to be perfectly honest, your customers' data, it's the #1 target. And companies who serve customers, they have the responsibility to keep data safe. Keeping private information secure right now, it's an expectation that everybody has. And in a lot of cases, it's the law. So if your organization goes through a data breach, and personal information of your customers is exposed, your customers, they'll feel violated. I mean, I personally was affected by the Capital One data breach. And when I got the email that my information had been exposed, I sat there and I thought to myself, I liked Capital One service. I used my Capital One credit card in a lot of places. But at this point, maybe I should look into another provider, because I don't want to have to go through changing all my credit card details, keeping an eye on my bank account to make sure that there's no fraudulent activity at the end of the day. That just creates more work for me than the consumer. So ultimately, a company's failure to protect their customers' information and keep private information secure, that's going to live forever in your company's reputation. And in the age of the internet, just like you said, there's going to be news articles, news stories that float around about companies going through breaches and information being exposed. For small to medium-sized businesses, this can be costly, not only bruising your company's reputation, but it's financially draining. You know, data breaches on average cost a company 7 days worth of downtime. So in conjunction to all that we're facing with the coronavirus, extra downtime, that's just detrimental to an organization. And currently, we're seeing a lot of laws come up around data breaches and keeping private information secure. Currently, just to name a few, you know, if your organization houses any health records, you have to be HIPAA compliant. And if you would go through a data breach, HIPAA could fine you on top of any sort of payment or what sort of downtime, causing even more financial hardship for your organization.
Yeah, we're finding from some of the cyber liability insurance carriers that it's getting harder and harder to get coverage because the risk of, you know, health records. There's so many records in one place at a time that's becoming a harder and harder thing to get even good insurance affordably because there's a big risk for the carrier to take on if you're not putting some of the things in place that can help from that. So maybe let's talk about in our last couple of minutes here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the tools that we can use to help combat the problem. What do we do? What's our part to try to combat the problem?
Absolutely. So we do have a service under our belt called Dark Web ID. And this is something that you can do to help detect any compromised credentials that your organization may have, whether it's your accounts or any employees' accounts that you have. You know, with Dark Web ID, it's a threat monitoring tool that provides 24/7, 365 a year monitoring for signs that a company's credentials have become exposed. Dark Web ID, it leverages a combination of human and artificial intelligence that scours the dark web and all the websites that live down there. So we're scouring botnets, criminal chat rooms, websites, bulletin boards, or your information, stolen information that could be financial details, even personal details such as social security numbers, email addresses, and passwords. We accomplish this by specifically looking for our clients' top-level email domains. And when any sort of credential is identified, we report on it. While we typically harvest this data from hacker websites like Sane, a lot of our data originates from websites on the dark web that require credibility or memberships within the hacker community to enter. So that's why we use that combination of artificial intelligence, but then our human analysts, they have, I hate to say this, good reputation on the dark web. They're not cyber criminals. They're here to help you and gain access to those communities to make sure we're reporting on all the information that could be exposed surrounding your organization.
So our company, for our customers and our prospects, we run some tools just to get kind of an idea of what data is out there, about them on the dark web. And very rarely do we find nothing. Almost every time you find something. And then if you do ongoing scanning, even for my company's domain, like something comes up way more frequently than I thought that it would prior to us looking into this for our own staff at Straight Edge. And 99% of the time, it's nothing that they had anything to do with. It's a website that had their information that was compromised. And then we get notified about it to let us know, like, hey, this tool that you use got compromised. And so, you need to go do something about that. We found information on the dark web, but the frequency was very surprising to me. For, our company, we have 20 some odd folks, but we were surprised at the number of websites that get compromised every month is pretty staggering.
Absolutely. You have to think, even think back to the last year alone, how many logins you've created using your email address and your password. Those are all websites that, you accept their terms and conditions when you log into, and you don't know what their cybersecurity terms are. You don't know what fail-safes they have in place. And unfortunately, because this data all has a price tag, cyber criminals are out there looking for their next target so they can truly make their money at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, Katie, thank you so much for being on our call today. That was great information. We love talking about this with our customers because we feel like a big component is just getting the information out there to let people know that this could happen. And just the idea that we can let more people know that there's this potential risk and that there's some things you can do about it. It keeps people safer. If you know that something might be a problem, then you're going to be more vigilant in the email that you get and those kind of things. So thanks for being on. And and talking to us. And Ben, thanks for joining us again this week to talk about where we're at in the city. I know we're all eager to start to put things back together and get back to work. And thanks for letting us know about that. So,
well, thank you,
guys,
sir.
Yeah, no, thanks for being with us. And Katie, thanks for your time today too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everybody. We'll post these online and share them out also. So if you weren't able to join us, you can view them online later today. Thanks a lot. Bye.